So I've often wondered why San Sebastian needs a duck shop, and I've never been able to figure it out for a number of years. But it occurred to me as I was grappling with the concept recently that actually, if you need a rubber duck to do rubber duck debugging is basically where you talk to a duck in order to figure some problem out. And so this is the perfect place to buy yourself a rubber duck. Ducks for every single occasion. I'm not allowed to touch them though. But we've got ducks, like policeman ducks, I'm not quite sure what that is, disco ducks, and even leopard ducks. And that's definitely me, DIY duck. And this is like Tron duck. Okay, so I'm going to switch on my Pinebook Pro. Okay, one of the things while this is booting is I'm going to point out is one of the sort of design issues, if you can sort of zoom in here a bit, you'll see perhaps that I've used some tape, some PVC tape to secure the screws, because what happens with the Pinebook Pro is that after a while, you can see I've lost one here maybe on the screen. What happens with the Pinebook Pro is that after a while, the screws work themselves loose. So I've lost one, two, at least two, maybe some more actually. I've got to try and find some replacements of the same size, but my current workaround is just to put some tape on it. It looks a bit messy, but at least the base is going to stay on. Okay, so it's almost booted. Hello and welcome to the Slackware ARM podcast. I'm Stuart Winter, the platform architect for Slackware on the ARM platform. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about building extra software using slackbuilds.org, which is a website that contains a whole bunch of different packages that are already ready set up to just compile from source using what's called Slack builds. If you don't know what a Slack build is, it's basically a Unix shell script which compiles and assembles a package, a Slackware package that's ready to install. So what I thought I wanted to do was to compile Audacity, which is an audio editing program, an open source audio editing program, so that I can edit, in fact, some of the podcast work on my Pinebook Pro or my Rock Pro 64 at home. So I've got my coffee ready, and I've already drunk most of it, in fact, and so that means that we're ready to go. Let's begin by having a look at the slackbuilds.org website. And before I do that, I'll connect to the coffee shop Wi-Fi. One of the criticisms of Slackware, particularly in the sort of early 2000s, was that whilst Slackware had really good coverage of the core Unix tools and common packages, users had to compile from source anything else that they wanted. So slackbuilds.org was created by a group of dedicated people within the Slackware community to help plug this gap. Slackbuilds.org, what is it? Well, it's a repository of build scripts, of Slack build scripts that create the Slackware packages that you can install onto the system to enable you to more easily build extra software packages for Slackware from source without having to figure out what can sometimes be quite complicated build processes. It takes away a lot of the time that you would spend reading the documentation and getting things working. Presently, for Slackware 15.0, there are 8,012 package build scripts available that have been build tested for Slackware. Personally, pretty much everything I have wanted to compile to add to my Slackware system I've found on slackbuilds.org. Even for some of the more niche projects, such as the video editing software, Shotcut is there that I use to edit the podcast. So there's a how-to guide, which I suggest you read before you start building the packages. And you've got an FAQ. One of the common questions that we get with Slackware is how can you help develop the project? Click on the submissions page because many of the new packages that find their way into Slackware come from slackbuilds.org, and a few of the core Slackware team help run and develop that project. So check out the submission guidelines to see how you can get involved. I store all my third-party package source repositories and build recipes inside /usr/src. Because that way, when it comes to upgrading the version of Slackware, I can look inside user SRC and realize that these were all the extra packages that I added. And because we build the package as root anyway, to me it just makes sense to store all this stuff in user SRC. So I've used the SU tool to create a directory called SBO to house all of the build recipes from slackbuilds.org, and then change the ownership to my user account. For this demo, we're going to build Audacity. So we type Audacity into the search box, click on the menu on the right hand side, and you'll be presented with a list of Slackware stable releases. At the time of recording this podcast, there is no stable release of the Slackware AArch64 port. So we'll be building these packages on Slackware Current. In the menu, select the most recent release of Slackware, which is 15.0, and we'll use the build scripts for that release. Then hit enter, and you'll be presented with the search results. So I'm going to click on Audacity. We're then presented with some information about the Audacity package. So there's a description about what the package is, what it does, what it's for. You'll see that there are some optional dependencies which are auto-detected. You'll see with other packages though that there are hard dependencies that you need to build and install before you can build the package that you'd like to use. In our case though, Audacity only has optional dependencies. So I'm going to show you just one of them, just to show you how the dependency build process works. There are tools available for Slack builds to make the dependency chasing a little bit easier, but for this podcast we're going to do it manually. And then you have some other information about building the package and who the maintainer is and that kind of thing. Further down the page, we've got more information about the package. We've got the home page, we've got the source download section that contains the URLs for the source code to, that you can compile, and also any other assets that you might need to build the final package. And then we have, on the right hand side of those, you've got the checksums, the MD5 checksums, and we'll be using those later in this video. And then further down we've got the download Slack build section, which provides the URLs to the gzipped tar archive, audacity.tar.gz, that contains everything you need to build a Slackware package using all the assets that are listed in the sources section. Okay, so we're now going to download the Audacity Slack build archive. So right click on the audacity.tar.gz link, copy the link, go to your shell, type wget, paste in the link, press enter, and then unpack the archive with tar xz. You can use v as well if you want verbosity, so you can see what's inside of it. I won't on this occasion. So I've extracted it. Now we'll change directory into Audacity, which has been created by the archive. And here is the list of files, the contents of the archive, and you'll see that that matches the list that is provided on the Slack Builds website. There we go. Okay, now we're going to download the source archive. I'm going to right click on the Audacity 302.tar.gz link. Again, copy the link. And this time I'll download it into the Audacity directory itself, because that's where the Slack build script expects to find it. So again, wget, paste in the URL, hit enter. And that's now downloaded. The next thing we want to do is to check the MD5 sum, make sure it's exactly the same as the one that's on the Slack Builds website. So there we go. So we copy just double click it. I paste it into the shell to do a visual check. Yes, those checksums match. For this demo, I'm only going to download the first source download because the others aren't required to build and run the package, and it adds about 40 minutes onto the build time, and I just don't have that much coffee left. It's now time to download one of the optional dependencies, TooLame. So back in the search box, type in TooLame and hit enter. Again, we can see the information is listed about what the package is, what it does, what it's for. Okay, so we're now going to download the Slack build archive. So again, right click on the link, go into your shell, cd this time upper directory, so we're back in user src sbo, into which we downloaded Audacity. Type wget, paste the URL, and then extract it again using tar. cd into the directory, and again, here is the contents of that archive. So we've got the Slack build script, and we've got the Slack desk, which is the package description and a README. And now we're going to download the source archive for TooLame itself. So again, right click on it, wget it. And again, we're going to compare the MD5 checksum to the one that's listed on the Slack Builds website. So Again, double click on that, and then I paste it into the shell to make it easy. And do a comparison. Yes, that is the same checksum. So the source archive is safe for us to use. Slackware packages are built as the root user for a number of reasons. It is possible to build packages as a normal user and use a tool called fake root to fake the permissions and the ownerships within the Slackware package archive. But to keep it simple and standard, we'll switch to the root user and build our packages as root. So now cd into user src_sbo, which was the directory that we downloaded everything. Now let's build one of the dependencies, tolame. So cd into the tolame directory. Before we set the build going, we're going to load the build script tolame.slackbuild into your favorite text editor because we need to make a few changes to these build scripts at the moment. Okay, so this is the Slack build. It's a Unix shell script that contains the full list of instructions that's required to build a Slackware package from the source code that we downloaded. One of the common questions we get for using these build scripts on ARM is, what do I set the C flags, the compiler flags to? Well, first, let's take a look at the architecture detection section of the script. Now, this is used for two things. It's used for making architectural build time decisions, such as which config options to set and whether to apply patches or configure the application in a specific way. It's also used to set the architecture segment of the package archive's name. For this build script on x86 32-bit, we're setting the architecture name to i586. For ARM 32-bit, we set it to ARM, and for all other architectures, we set the value to that which is returned by uname. For Slackware AArch64, we're using the asterisk, which returns AArch64. We don't need to change anything here, so page down to where we set the C flags and the library suffix names on a per architecture basis. So for 32-bit architectures, Slackware stores all of the system libraries in user/lib64 or /lib64 because that's the standard convention in the Linux world. For ARM 32-bit, you don't need to do anything here. You can leave it as it is. But for AArch64, we need to add -fpic to the compiler flags in most cases. And we also need to set the library suffix to 64. There has been a change submitted to the Slack builds template to add AArch64 support, but it's going to take some time before it ripples through all of the packages. So we're going to change this for Slackware AArch64. As it happens, we need to set the same set of options as for x86-64. Now, seeing as these are your local copies, you're not submitting these back to slackbuilds.org, there are two ways that you can do this. The first is to just switch over the detection of x86-64 with AArch64, so just change the match condition there and save it. And the other way is to delete all of the match conditions around the variables and just hard code them in. For this package, I'll do the latter. So save it. Now run the build script ./tolame.slackbuild, hit enter. You can see it took 25 seconds to build. I'll check the package quickly to ensure that the system library directory was set to lib64. Yes, it was. Okay, let's install this dependency. Now let's edit those C flags for Audacity. So I've cd'd into the Audacity directory and I've loaded the audacity.slackbuild into an editor. I'm going to replace the x86-64 with AArch64 and then save the build script. That's all we need to do. Okay, so let's now set Audacity building. So I'm going to run it through time again. So time./audacity.slackbuild. Okay, so I think what I better do is plug that into the power because it might take a little while. One of the things that I did for my Pinebook Pro is I extended the lead quite significantly for these types of situations. All right, so let's leave that to compile. Okay, that's all done. So we just need to install it now, so let's install the package. Actually, before I install it, I'll sanity check it again to make sure that the system library directories have been correctly set. So as you can see, yes, user lib64, it's all good. So now it's time to install the Audacity package we've just compiled. So we'll use the install pkg command, and the package has been save to /tmp, so /tmp/Audacity. You can find it using the asterisks as I have, and press enter and it will install the package. Okay, the next step is to launch the package. If you're using KDE like me, then as soon as the package is installed, you'll be able to find it through the applications menu. Click its icon to launch it. Oh, it's loading up. And as you can see, it is now ready to use. Okay, so we're all done. I've got Audacity compiled, I've got it installed, and I've run it successfully. So now I've got to start playing around with it. So I hope that's been useful to you. And remember that you can use slackbuilds.org not just for AArch64 and ARM, but also for x86 and x86-64 as well. It's exactly the same processes. Now it's time to go and have a bit more lunch. Remember that this project exists purely through your donation, so if you like the project, remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can also donate as well. My camera girl Elizabeth is actually wanting an ice cream, so if you like her camera work for this episode, please let me know in the comments whether she should have a single scoop or a double scoop. And we'll see you in the next video. Okay, see you later. Bye.